Hey, hello and welcome. My name is Eric and I'm from Games by Hyper. And today I want to show you how you can add your own tree to my tree cutting system. And specifically, we are going to focus on the material-based offset tree. The material-based offset tree is the one that's the most easy one to add, and also it is fully static mesh-based. So let's check it out. What I have two content browsers right here. I already have a tree. It's a static mesh which I would like to add. I'm going to open it. It's a beautiful tree. It has 4 materials. So yeah, sure. How are we going to make this a choppable one? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to navigate to the tree cutting folder. I'm going to navigate to the material-based choppable trees. And I am firstly going to make a new configuration. I can make one by making a new one, or like a child of the master itself, like so. Or if I would like to have some settings already predefined, I'm going to copy paste it by duplicating this one. So let's duplicate it and let's call this one Pine Large, because that is what it is. I have this one here. Going to drag it in the world, and now I have the Pine Large tree. However, it is a duplication one of this one, and we would like this one to have a new mesh and also work with the tree cutting system. So the next thing that we are going to do, open this specific blueprint, and we can click on the open full blueprint editor. It is not necessary, but it helps for previewing, for instance, this viewport. There are all kinds of different class settings here on the right, including, hey, which static mesh do we need to assign here? I am going to click on this one, the new tree, and I am going to assign it like this. Compile it, and now we can see it has the new tree right here. However, it's not set up yet. So the next step would be opening the mesh itself and make sure that this mesh has a material offset mask, a function that I predefined for you, to apply it on the part of the material which you want to chop. We can click on highlight, and I know that this specific material, this trunk material, is the one that we are going to reach with our X. I can test it out. This is about the height of the tree. So this is the material I'm going to open. Now we have material. And the material can look very simple, like this one, or it could look really complex. However, the functionality would still be the same. And that would mean to add a specific function in between. So what I'm going to do, here I have this function, material offset mask. I can drag that in this material one, like this. Here we have world position offset. I'm going to connect it to the world position offset. Here we have the normal. Instead of routing this normal directly in this end node, I am going to reroute it like this. And I'm also going to do that for the roughness. And the roughness is assigned to this green channel right here, like so. And I'm also going to do that for the base color, like so. I am going to keep the specular and the occlusion on the same level. It doesn't really matter that these don't have really lots of effects on it. Before we are going any further in the tree itself and the dimensions of the mask, we are going to make sure the prerequisites of the tree are defined well enough so we can use it as a choppable tree. What we need to do is we need to allow CPU access. That is a requirement for procedural splitting the mesh which we are using in the blueprint itself. Another one is we need to set up the collisions. So first I'm going to show the collisions. This is not a correct collision box. I'm going to remove it. I'm going to make new collision boxes by pressing auto convex collisions. Here on the lower right, we can tweak some settings to generate the auto convex collisions. What I'm going to do, I'm going to probably do something like 8 holes. It may have some more precision for me, and I'm going to generate it. And now it is generated, so it has some collision boxes here on the top, which is fine. And this one is a bit smaller. However, I would like this one to be more like this, so we can actually walk up the tree like so. Perfect. So the next thing is setting up this blueprint, and that would first need a requirement of setting this choppable material index. And what it does is, okay, which index is the one that of the materials, so this element 1, 0, 2, and 3, the one that's going to need to apply the choppable index to. And as we can see, it is the trunk, and that is index number 1. So what we are going to do, I'm going to set this to index number 1. That will mean that if we're going to chop the tree, at the moment it will apply that material to specific that index. Okay. The next up is at the moment that we are going to chop the tree, it will split the mesh. And at the moment of the mesh is split it will set the materials at the top of the tree. However, in some more complex trees like this one, which has 4 different materials, the order is not perfectly assigned, etc. We sometimes may need to require to set the top materials out manually. So I have this checkbox right here. Set top trunk mesh manually. I can click on this. And now I'm going to assign, okay, which mesh, which materials should be first applied, and then second, then third, etc., etc. If you keep one empty, that's fine. It will automatically simply not apply it and detect which is the last one. Okay, I have found the specific indexes, and that is both the trunk indexes I've set it to 1. Why? Because here the trunk one is at 1, so I keep that material on the base itself after splitting it. And the other ones are just precisely the order that this one has, with this boolean checked to true. So if we have set it like this, it is going to set all these materials specifically how we assigned it. And splitting it, the trunk mesh is still the trunk material, and the top was assigned the new one. For this specific tree, we have set it the top trunk meshes, the materials manually. However, if we are going to disable it like so, and going to chop the tree, it is still working perfectly. However, I just showed you this, that because of most of the trees especially for megascans, do require some manual material index placement. For this one, it doesn't, because the trunk is quite high, the trunk material. So specifically till this part, it's the trunk material, and split it somewhere in between. But if it's going to split somewhere in the middle of 2 materials, it's going to assign it in a sometimes random order, and therefore you can use this specific part and set up the trunk mesh, set the top trunk mesh manually, like so. And for the trunk itself, it are these trunk material indexes that needs to be assigned. With Nanite enabled, we need to set that relative error on the fallback target and the fallback relative error to 0. And don't forget to apply these changes. And when you have done that, we now have a working tree that is also working on Nanite, like so. Okay, so now we have a choppable tree of a new tree. However, we find that the mask is a bit off. I find it quite long, like so. So we're going to make some changes. First thing that we can do is we can preview the settings directly in this tree by making a material instance of this specific trunk. So if I'm going to make an instance like this, assign it on the tree like so. So now we have assigned the instance to this tree. And if we open an instance, we have some live settings here, and specifically the offset ones. And these are the ones that are applied to this. So the first thing that we are going to override are the bounds. So we see it's stretched. Let's turn off the collision view. Let's make this a bit smaller. And I think it's XIZ. So yes, it is. So now it's 10 units, 20 units, 30 units, 50 units. You can play with it. So, but I like this one, I think, on 10. We can also change the edge fall off. So that's more how smooth it goes, like so. I think I liked it like this. And we can also say, okay, how far is the mask along? So this is no mask applied, and here we see it's very narrow. And we can also see maybe the end mask should be what's like 0.7. The settings that we're currently applying here is not applied on the choppable tree itself, because these are being set here. So here we have the mask bounds, and it's set to 150, 150, and 15. Let me open that instance again. Oh, here it is. Setting it to 10 felt more nicely. So I am going to set this bounce to 10. The other one was the edge fall off. We have set that one to 15. And we could also play around a bit with the start location. Currently it's 115. Let's set that one to 125, a bit more in height. And that's the same as we are currently previewing. So compile it, save it. And if we are going to test it right now, we will see that once we are going to hit this one, the mask is now less stretched in the height and more assigned to what we just described. Like so. Perfect. This specific tree needs some time to fall down. So here's the duration before log spawning. Let's make that like 8 seconds and see how that one is going to look like. Oh, we need to adapt the sound for the falling a bit, but we get the idea. It looks more nicely now. Another one is here we have the logs. The logs are now a white version. Here it says, okay, which log are we spawning? If you do have a different mesh, currently I do not have one for this specific tree, but if you do have one, you could duplicate this one. And Scott's, this was a pine large. This is actually a child of a pickup log, and that's a child of a pickup item itself. And this one, we can just play around with it just a small bit and say maybe we can scale it a bit like so. So it's more thin and long. So we have something to show right now in this specific log. We can assign here as, okay, spawn that log. So we now have the child of the pickup log, pine large. We have changed the scale a bit. However, I know that in this pickup item, I am setting the scale also in the parent. So I'm going to override it in the construction script saying, hey, get a static mesh, put it to a custom scale. So now it will be a bit smaller. Let's even make it like 0.4, like so. Compile it. And when I am going to chop this one down, it will spawn that specific blueprint actor, which is setting it to a smaller log right now. So 4 seconds, 4.5 seconds, and it will spawn. And yes, as you can see right now, the logs are smaller. But it would be more good for the visual effects to make a own log for each tree that you have. Okay. The next thing is setting up a placeable. Currently, this is being called a configuration, and the configuration holds all the logic, all the meshes, and the material offset mask, etc. However, for performance reasons, you would like to have a simple static mesh in the world and not a full actor with all kinds of masks applied, etc. So what you can do is you can make a placeable blueprint, and the placeable is a child of the placeable master. In this case, we are going to duplicate anyone and call it pine large like this. We can open the pine large, and here we say, okay, which material, which static mesh should be assigned. And that is this pine tree that we have right here. And which actor should this one spawn? And it should spawn the pine large. The one that we just created, and that one is the configuration. So now we have created this supermaster, the pine large. We can drag this one in the world. It's a different actor than this one. This one is just a static mesh right now, which handles everything. But at the moment I am hitting it, it's going to switch it up to the other tree, which will make sure it is working fine. And this one will also make sure to set a respawn timer, etc. I also wanted to add some extra information about if you have really high vertices tree that are complexly set up. It could be that the tree is a bit slower when you're going to chop it down. So please make sure to tweak some settings to make the tree have less impact. For instance, what you can do is you can auto-generate a lot. Think of making it high detail, so it has certain lot levels. And when we are copying the mesh itself to a procedure one, we can say, hey, use lot 1, for instance. And lot 1 is less vertices, so it has less impact on the performance when making that procedural mesh. The other one is if you have Nanite, you can tweak some of the triangle percentages that you want to keep. For instance, this tree was like 6-7 million triangles. That's way too much. So this one, if you keep like 12%, it is way more performant and still looks the same. So now when you chop a tree, you don't see the delays, etc. And that is more, it's way more performant. So please tweak a bit with the settings if you have complex trees that you want to figure out. So now we have a placeable right now in the world. We have linked a configuration to that specific placeable. That placeable is set up, the configuration is set up with all the defaults that we need here on the right. So that is setting the mask settings to the right values, how we like it. Make sure that the trunk material of the chopping is being set to the right index. making sure to assign our own log that we would like to spawn, and if needed, set our own top material index for the top mesh if needed for more complex trees. And in the tree itself, we have made sure to allow CPU access, set up the convex collision, and that's it. That's how you add your own choppable tree. Oh yeah, and of course the material itself, the material offset mask in this tree. That's it. Let me know if you have any questions, and I hope this helps you setting up your own tree. Bye. Congrats, you have reached the end of this video. And of course, I hope you liked it. So please let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Feel free to reach out anytime, for instance, via Discord or Patreon. And don't forget to check out one of the videos that I will be posting somewhere here. And of course, I hope you have a very nice day. Bye.